Hey guys, Andrew McComb here from Outlier. We had such a fantastic full Outlier episode with Nathan Faavae that we've decided to do a little bit of bonus work because he's got so much wisdom, so much insight to share, we thought it'd be crazy not to. Nathan, a huge passion of yours is passion. Why is that so important to the young outliers out there and entrepreneurs who are looking to, I guess, embark on their own journey?
I think the reason why I really promote the importance of being passionate about something is it's quite cliche, but I think you can achieve so much more if you're excited to get out of bed in the morning and go and do a task that really engages you in multiple ways. You know, I think back on the significant things I've done in life, and they've largely been driven by passion. They've been things that really interest me, excite me, sort of engage me on, in all sort of senses. So yeah, I just really encourage people to figure out what really is they want to be doing, and then just figure out how you can spend most of your time doing those things.
How do you do that? Because it's easy for us. We're already been there, done that in a lot of sense, right? But what is it? How do you know you're passionate about something?
How do you know you're passionate about something? I think it's really what in your heart is what you would really like to be doing if you were given the choice. I mean, maybe one way of asking the question or thinking about it would be, if you didn't have to work, what would fill your days? What would it be that you'd go and spend your time doing? And for me, it's largely, for me that would be outdoor adventure sport. Like, I just love being in the outdoors, connecting with nature, mentally, physically, getting out there and being amongst the elements. That's what I actually strive to try and do most of my time. And so if I can figure out a way of creating a lifestyle or essentially a life out of spending more time doing the things I enjoy and less time doing the things I perhaps don't enjoy so much, then I'd see that as a pretty successful sort of outcome. So yeah, I think it's just, what is it that really squeals your wheels or rocks your boat, however you want to say it. But it's the stuff that I think, in your heart is the thing that you'd really sort of like to be doing.
So use that as one of your key pillars. You mentioned it in the full interview about the triangle, where passion was an extremely important part of that. But that's obviously a fundamentally important part of everything that you do.
Yeah, well, I guess, essentially, if you're doing something you're passionate about, I think the energy just flows a lot more naturally. So, there's lots of things you can do to fill in your day, but if it's something that you're not actually that engaged in, or I think passion is the right word. If it's something you're not that passionate about, then I think it will become laborious and tiresome, and it becomes a chore, or really does become a job. Whereas, you can do some very, very hard things if you're passionate about it, and you'll find, I find that I just get an abundance of energy around those things, because I guess it is. It's just stimulating in so many different ways that it works.
So an example that I can think of there is when you've done 23 hours in a race, a 6-day race, and you haven't slept, and you're about to have an hour's sleep. You have your hour's sleep, and you wake up. Is that where passion's going to come in and to support you?
Probably not that point of time. It's probably commitment and sort of resilience and a bit of tenacity that'll get you through some of the hard points of it. Of an adventure race at least. But I think overall, if you sort of look at the complete experience, I think having a passion for adventure, having a passion for exploring new places, having a passion for being part of a high-performing team, having a passion for doing challenging things, that's how you can exceed in the sport of adventure racing, by having the desire to be out there.
And for the young outliers out there who, they talk about resilience these days, it's quite a buzzword, the ability to overcome external pressures or challenges. Is that something that can be taught, or is it something that is innate?
I think resilience is something that's taught. I think you grow from doing the things you thought you couldn't do. So I'm always an encourager of people to stretch themselves, to challenge themselves, and to sort of expand, their comfort zone. And a lot of that can come about by, well, first of all, expanding your perceptions. So going, well, let's not limit what I can do. Let's sort of be more creative about things and step up there and challenge yourself. And I think the more you embark on challenges and the more you achieve those challenges, a natural outcome of that is sort of learning some of those core values like essential behaviours such as resilience or tenacity or those sort of things. I think by doing hard things, you naturally just become a tougher person. And, a tougher person will just deal with a whole lot more, challenge and adversity, I think.
If you look at that concept, so effectively what I'm hearing is if you take action that's slightly out of your comfort zone, you shift your reality, and then that sort of expands your potential, and you then feel that and start to believe that, then you shift it again, all of a sudden you're a different person, essentially. When you look back at your journey from, say, a teenager to everything you've been through, do you feel like a different person or just an evolution of the same person that already existed in the first place?
Yeah, I think as you grow and develop, I guess life in many ways is a journey of sort of self-improvement. Right from the time you're born, you're kind of learning all these new things. You're sort of learning to crawl and walk and run, and you're learning to talk, and you're learning how to survive in the world. So I think naturally as human beings, we do get a lot of satisfaction and probably comfort from being on that journey. And I think what's unfortunate for a lot of adults is when they get bogged down by kind of the modern world and the rat race, is they feel like, and they probably aren't in many ways, on that journey. And that's why I think sport is so great, because people get out and they're learning new things and they're improving. And I think by nature we are a being that does perform better if we are actually out there and challenging ourselves in whatever way that may be. And for me, it's often been physical challenge, but I think it's hugely satisfying when you learn a new skill, or you realise that you're actually getting fitter, or you realise you're getting stronger, or you realise you're losing weight, or whatever your goal was, that you're actually achieving that. And what I really like about sport in particular is it's very measurable. You can put in some hard work for a few weeks and then you'll start to see some sort of results. And I think my life has largely been a lifetime of self-improvement. Like, I've always sought new challenges. I've always kind of stretched that bubble, I guess you could say, of the comfort zone. And what's interesting about stretching your comfort zone is that, there's certainly been some big challenges in my life. So something will pop up and I'll go, well, that's going to be a very difficult thing to learn or to achieve. But you go down that journey, you go through the frustrations, the process, I guess, of learning a new skill, and then there's a point in the future where no longer is that particular thing a challenge. It's now part of essentially your bubble of comfort, which you just made bigger and bigger and bigger. And I guess I'm nearly 50 years old now, and after sort of 30, 35 years of sort of stretching that bubble, I now have a really big bubble. So my comfort zone allows me to go and do a whole lot of stuff that a lot of people would probably consider foolish or dangerous, but for me it's just become somewhat normal.
You mentioned some big challenges you've had to overcome. Can you give us an example of one of those and the process that you used to overcome those? And do they change each time, or do you have a pretty similar system each time?
Well, I think overcoming obstacles on your journey is always a little bit different. I think as a person, fundamentally, it's going to be your sort of values and strength and your mindset that'll get you through things. Challenges come up in all sort of shapes and forms. I think the biggest one for me, without a doubt, as an athlete, is that I was diagnosed with a heart condition, atrial fibrillation, in 1999, which coincidentally was the first year that I did an expedition adventure race. Totally unrelated. But through my sporting career, at times that has been quite a difficult thing to deal with, because the heart condition, while not fatal, it does sort of limit how much I can do physically sometimes. So it's very hard as an athlete when you're training for peak performance at an elite sort of world level, and you can't do 20% of your training because of a heart sort of problem. So I've had 3 surgical procedures to my heart, and right now it's great, like it's normal. I basically live a normal life, but there are periods where it can come back again and things. So it's tough, and I think when something like that's going on, there's obviously the physical things, but it is actually more emotional, because I realise that I'm no longer sort of living my dream because of these things I can't control kind of directly. And as an athlete, it's very hard to stay positive, because when you're losing 20% of your training, you have to start asking, well, how much of my performance am I losing because of that? Is it 20%? Is it more? Is it less? And mentally and emotionally, it's just a hard place to be in. But I think the way through it is that you just have to trust that, you know, time is a great healer, and that, you know, problems are often a lot bigger in the moment than they are in the future, and that you just have to trust that there's be a point in the future sometime when what is right now this major problem will actually have solved itself, gone away, or just been diminished over time. And I think that helps a lot. Like, I think, you know, in life no one is immune to tragic things happen, you know, like terrible things happen to all of us, I think, at some point during our life. And while there's sort of a grieving process and a time of hardship, I think you just have to trust that, you know, this will pass, and there'll be a point in the future when everything will sort of rebalance out again, and not to get sort of too bogged down, I think, in the present, and just do what you can, do your best, and know that, you know, things will get better.
We have a term in our Outlier coaching that is feeling is healing. So you mentioned about how emotion comes up under certain duress or under certain challenges. What do you do to, I guess, they talk about emotional intelligence, but when you're under stress in a race, for example, and things aren't going well and you've got the team to think about, etc., how do you deal with the emotional side of things?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think in a racing environment, you know, probably the toughest times, and if you feel yourself, emotionally struggling or feeling very emotional for certain reasons, I think the main thing for me is not to kind of suppress or ignore those feelings. Like, I think that it's really important to acknowledge what's going on for you at the time, and be okay with that. And it's okay to be upset about things, or, you know, if something comes into your mind and you're kind of at a vulnerable point, and for some reason you can get a bit emotional about things. I think for me it's important just to kind of accept that and sort of experience it, and then just at the right time just kind of almost to sort of shelve it for the later to deal with, or you may not even need to. But I think I know from experience that sort of denying that those emotions are there is not a healthy thing, and they're not going to go away. So it's actually better to sort of celebrate those emotions. And I guess to give it some context, when I think about that, my parents were in a really horrific car accident some years ago in 2013, and my mum was killed in the accident, and my father was seriously injured. And not long after that, I had to make the hard decision whether or not to go and compete in the World Champs. And my father sort of said, look, I really think you should go because it's a big part of who you are, and you know, your mother would not have wanted you to kind of miss out on these amazing opportunities that you have, because of what's happened. So I went, but it was really tough for me. You know, it was a real emotional time, because when you're out there racing, you know, you don't have much in the tank at times, and you are vulnerable, and those things come up. But I learned from that when those times come up, it was actually just good for me to say to my teammates, hey guys, I'm fine, I'm just a bit emotional right now, so just be gentle, or, you know, just so they know. And then things would, go back to a bit of a normal, and then you sort of move on. And
that's a really good point you make about team and the environment. So obviously there'll be times where you're going through the ringer in some form, and you'll have your own process. And then as a captain of a team, how do you deal with your team's emotional process under duress? Because it happens a lot within a six-day race. It's going to happen many times, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. So I think when I sort of look at sort of management of a team, I think what I'm doing in a race, pre-race as well, and sometimes even post-race, is just really monitoring where my teammates are at. And I sort of believe that because I've had a career working with people in the outdoors, either in tourism and guiding or as an outdoor instructor, as I've sort of consider myself to have quite a high level of awareness of where people are at. And so I do spend quite a lot of time observing and getting a sort of a feel for where my teammates might be, emotionally, physically, mentally, all that kind of stuff. And often it's just a matter of just checking in with people, just taking a bit of time to just have a quick chat and ask a few questions. How's it going? How's your day? I mean, this is during a race, and just engage with them a bit and just see where that goes, or sometimes I might even be a little bit more to the point. I might say, hey guys, I just, one of my teammates, I just noticed you've been real quiet this morning. Is everything okay? And they might say, oh, I'm actually a bit homesick, or I've been a bit worried about this, or they've sort of gone somewhere else for a few hours. And just a bit of healthy discussion and things is usually fine. I mean, they're not usually major things, but it's just quite nice as a team captain, I think, to know that you care about your teammates and you can connect on these different levels.
Is that something you, as a team, actively work towards, knowing it's going to come up at some point? You have a framework around collectively, hey guys, if something does come up, we're going to be open with communication, or is it just something that naturally evolves during the moment?
Yeah, I think the communication within our team sort of naturally evolves, but it has come from years and years of racing together and a lot of sort of work. And I think one of the things that sort of helps our team culture, or certainly aids it, is, I've spoken to our team or facilitated quite a few discussions around intent. And I think that's a real powerful thing in a performing team. And probably when I say that, what I'm sort of meaning is not only creating a high-performing team, but not creating a dysfunctional team. And I think intent is a really important thing for people to think about, especially in a team, because when people say things in an intense environment like event racing is, especially on day 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, things can get misinterpreted pretty easily, and that's not a great thing. So one thing I've really sort of instilled in the team culture, well, I think I have, is the intent and the purpose behind things. And what that essentially does in the team is it sort of gives people license to ask things pretty personal or pretty direct or potentially pretty confronting or controversial, provided their intent is in the right place. And then the rest of the teammates know that they are just trusting that this other person's purpose and intent here is actually pure, and it's for the good of the team, and they're actually asking these questions because they're trying to help the person or help the team. It's not doing something malice or evil or a put down in any way. So I think that license to kind of sort of communicate quite freely is definitely helpful when the teammates know that if someone says something to them that is kind of like, oh, that's a bit of a weird thing, or that's maybe a bit uncomfortable or far out, that's pretty to the point, their reaction might be kind of like, oh man, to resist or to sort of rebel against that. But they just need to quickly remind themselves that, hold on a minute, the intent of what this person is saying or asking is actually really is good. So I may have misinterpreted things, so let's just slow things down, ask for clarity, or don't get into that kind of resistance. And I think that's worked really well for our team, that that people are not afraid to kind of share what's on their mind, as long as they know that whatever they're going to be putting forward it's from a place of helpful intent.
Do you find with people being more open to vulnerability, it's more powerful for a collective goal and the team as a whole?
Oh, absolutely. I think if there's one other core thing to have in a high-performing team, is that people are actually comfortable with vulnerability. So they're actually in that kind of constant state of knowing that they might be given some advice or critiqued or asked to do something or asked to improve or whatever it is, so that it's kind of like, we are trying to be the world champion team here, and if any one of us has got a way or an idea of kind of making that happen, then let's share it, let's get it out there, and not, don't be offended if you don't like what the person's saying. Just take it on board or don't take it on board, but at least keep those channels of communication open.
6-time world champion and many, many other amazing wins and podium finishes. Has there been a collective intentional purpose every time you go out, is it like, do you set an intentional purpose per race, or is it collectively like a legacy type purpose that you want to leave something better than when by the time you move on?
Yeah, I think the sort of collective sort of purpose or sort of goal or intention of every race we go into, I think now it's almost unspoken. And because we've been racing together as a core team for so long, and some of our relationships within the team go back so far, you know, it's kind of friends and colleagues and different things, that really when we line up and race now, a lot of that stuff, it's just kind of pushing play on what is already there. Like, we've already sort of manufactured the framework for a high-performing team, so it's just a matter of sort of unleashing that again, I think, as we go and race. But the sort of the underlying, I guess, mission is to be a champion team, and perhaps even beyond that is to race like a champion team. And that's not really measured by whether we win or get second or third or fourth or fifth or whatever our placing is. That's more about perception. That's more about when we're out there racing like a champion team, that we know that we are going at the total highest end of the sport. We know we're moving through this terrain, you know, as fast, if not faster than any other team, because we're so focused and in the moment and doing all these things right. And then also the other thing about being, for us to go with the goal of being a champion team is the perception of others, is what they see. So, you know, pre-race, when teams sort of see us kind of, you know, around in the, you know, the gear checks and the race briefings and the safety talks and all that, you know, we're very clear and defined about what we want to portray and what we want our competitors to see. And that is a team that is, you know, relaxed and calm and composed, that get on well, they're jovial, they're joking, they're not stressed, they're looking confident, you know, they're strong, they're fit. Well, we actually do want to send that message out to the rest of the field that, you know, hey, it's great you guys are here to try and win the race, but we're the team that is probably going to make that really hard for you to do. And they will be looking at us. So when we go to a race, you know, our mindset is to race like a champion team, but a lot of that is not only how we perform on course, but it's also about how we portray, you know, to other teams. And it's really, really important because, you know, as a racer, and we haven't always been, you know, as dominant. You know, there was a lot of times when we were the teams that we were a team that was trying to kind of reach that level. And, you know, we would look around and get quite intimidated by some of the other teams, because we would go, whoa, you know, those guys just look like a champion team. And then we would see the opposite. We would see a team that on paper should go quite well, but we might even just observe them having breakfast together as a team, and you could sort of tell that they don't even really look like a unit.
They're not a team.
No, they're just four individuals sitting at a table having breakfast, you know. So I think there's a lot in, you know, how you are, how you perform, how you behave for your team internally, but also externally as well.
So clearly that intimidation factor, it's like the All Blacks, right? They're almost, the teams are beaten before they turn up when they know they're playing the All Blacks, and it's the same thing you're trying to portray there?
I think so. I mean, a lot of that comes with legacy. So when you've been gifted a legacy like we have, and like the All Blacks with rugby, where you are pretty much just sort of continuation of this amazing kind of machine that's been created, that just to be there, like, I guess pulling on an All Blacks jersey, you know, in our sport, you know, racing for our team is sort of the equivalent, you know, I guess that you could say. So with that, I think comes a whole lot of natural confidence anyway. But then it's still really important to sort of show that you are worthy of being in that position as well. And yeah, just keeping the legacy alive is definitely a big motivating factor. But that comes with a real sense of responsibility, and I like that. I enjoy that.
So how important are mentors to you, and then how important is being a mentor to others to you?
Yeah, I think mentors per se, I mean, I think it depends what you define as a mentor. Like I I don't have a sort of specific mentor as such, but there's been many, many people at different times in my life that have been very influential. And some of those people I may have only come in contact with for a very, very brief moment of time. But I've thought, wow, that's really quite enlightening, or that's really powerful, or I'm going to adopt that. Like what I've seen in just these few minutes is a behaviour that I would like to have. So, I guess I'm always kind of looking around and being inspired by people, and I sort of have this philosophy that, everyone has something to teach you. So if you actually sort of get to know people and talk to them, understand their story a bit more, you sort of realise that, oh, that's quite interesting. Yeah, I like that idea, or, I'll think more about that. So, there's definitely been people out there that have pushed boundaries, and, they kind of show you that, if you just really go for it, in your chosen field, it's incredible what you can achieve. And this is right across the board, of music, art, business, technology, sport, whatever it is. But it is always inspiring seeing, people at the top of whatever it is they're doing. And I think I get a lot of inspiration from those people, and just say, wow, it's amazing that they've dedicated themselves to this, they've achieved this. And I can sort of take strength and inspiration from what they've done.
How would you surmise that? What does it take to be the top in your class, in the world, at your game?
I think what's gotten us to the top of adventure racing, I think fundamentally there has to be a belief. You have to be able to believe that what it is possible. That's number one, I think. But then there has to be a realistic amount of work and preparation and effort and sacrifice that goes into to essentially giving that belief some credibility. So, I think it's a little bit false to kind of say to people, oh, you can achieve whatever it is you set your mind to. Like, I think that's partly true, but, I'll bring it back to my kind of model that it's probably partly true as long as you're passionate about it and you've got skills in that area, and that somehow you manage to have the time to kind of develop those things. So I think with adventure racing, with our team, we've just been fortunate that, we have all had a real passion for the outdoors. We've spent a lifetime gathering skills and experience, which is all very applicable to that sport. And, the legacy that has been passed to us from the New Zealand adventure races that came before us sort of said to us, we are capable, you guys are capable of winning, the World Championships, these major events, so go out there and do it. So, you have that sort of confidence sort of coming through as well. And that's just a lot of hard work. Like, I think it's easy to watch an adventure race on TV or watch it in person, but just sort of be on the sidelines and go, man, these guys make it look easy. It can't be that hard, or whatever it may be. But what they don't see is the late nights out training, or the early mornings, or the big days juggling family and work and trying to make it all happen. And I think that that people just need to remind themselves that nothing comes easy. There's a lot of work that's gone on in the background, and that's why I think it's really important that whatever you choose to do, if you want to be successful at it, that you do have to be passionate about it, because it's going to take a lot of effort. But be patient, and I think the important thing is that you're on that journey, you're on that pathway, and I know lots of young adventure racers at the moment who are on that pathway. They're gathering skills, they're doing races to gain experience. They're sort of sponges of information about everything sort of adventure racing. And one day they may get there, they may sort of win a world champs, but I don't really think it really matters if they don't, because the real benefits that they're getting is more about the lifestyle and the healthy living, and they're physically and mentally well, and they're exploring their country, they're exploring the world, they're learning about teamwork, they're learning about goal setting, they're learning about overcoming disappointment. There's all these other things. So it's more about being on that pathway. And I think once people are on that pathway, no one really measures it at the end by results. I don't think. It's more about the experiences that kind of make up the whole.
The self-fulfillment side of it.
I think so, yeah.
So when you look at your journey, so much of it's been focused on yourself and the team, but you also do so much more for others, giving back from you've got a trust, you talk at schools, you've written your book. Which one's more important to you now that I guess your career's coming to an end or a transition point?
Yeah, I think my life has been in sort of cycles, I guess you could say, and certainly for the first 20 years of my life, no, well, that's untrue. I'd say for the first 30 or 40 years, as a child being raised, I think life is a lot about receiving and taking, and that's fine. You're growing up and you're sort of absorbing all this stuff. But for me, what was important is that somewhere throughout that period that had to kind of transfer a bit, and there needed to be some sort of giving. For me, it's just about sort of the yin yang of balance of things. I really like that philosophy, and parenting is a great start. You start raising children, all of a sudden you've got these takers who are just absorbing whatever it is. I mean, obviously they give a lot back, but essentially as a parent there's just a huge amount of giving. And so for me, what was really important is that for Jodie and I, my wife, we have been the benefactors of sport. We have a really happy lifestyle. We get to do the things we enjoy. We've got a healthy family, and if we look at the mechanics behind that, it's largely been sport that's helped us sort of create that. And sport is made up of people who are willing to step out of being participants and actually creating these opportunities for people to go and race. So 15 years ago, we decided to set up an events company, and our mission was to be able to put energy back into an area that we had taken so much from. And we'd also had the luxury of racing internationally. Jodie, my wife, was a New Zealand mountain bike representative as well, so she's raced all around the world. So we've actually travelled around the world looking at events, looking at great events, looking at bad events, as being participants in all these different things. So to be able to come back to New Zealand and go, let's set up an events company, let's combine all the things that we think are cool and leave out all the things we think are dumb, and create opportunities for more New Zealanders to sort of experience what we had. And I think from then things have just kind of stemmed out. I end up sort of doing these other roles because I guess through sport, your profile increases and you realise you do have some social responsibility or just some influence, and then it's kind of like, well, how do I use this influence in a positive way? And just how it's unfolded.
So when you look back at all of the journey you've had, what do you think the fundamental purpose was for you, and then how important is purpose for others when they're embarking on their journey?
If I think of sort of life and purpose and things, I mean, probably what comes to mind is just health and happiness. Like, I really think if people are fundamentally sort of getting up each day and doing the things that bring them the most joy, health and happiness for most of the time, then they're probably doing something right. And so for me, that's something I'm a really big promoter of, I think your biggest asset in life is your health, and prioritising that. So whatever that takes, really, I think is probably a pretty important thing for people to be sort of thinking about, and especially if they're living a lifestyle that they know is sort of unhealthy. That's when I'd probably be having concerns about, what it is you're doing or the pathway you're on. And if I look at a theme through my life, it's definitely been about being healthy and sort of finding happiness, by doing the things I enjoy doing, and just trying to spend more time doing that than anything else. And it works out pretty well. You've
done a pretty good job of it, haven't you? Final question: how do the lessons you've learned through sport apply to business for the young outliers and entrepreneurs out there who are, again, they're embarking on a journey and they want to learn maybe a little bit more before they embark on it? What would you say from what you've learned?
I think as a whole that the key components to success are pretty much the same fundamental building blocks. for whatever it is, whether it's sport, whether it's business, whether it's family life. You know, I think there's a model that you can sort of transfer one between the two, and why I kind of know this is because I've seen some very successful sporting people sort of take that sort of fairly basic model and apply it to business, have done very well. But I've actually also seen some really successful business people bring it across to sport and do sort of pretty well. And I think those basic sort of pillars are, it's obviously having a goal and knowing what it is you're trying to achieve, like defining what success looks like to you in any sort of thing. So, you know, with any business or with any sporting event, there's obviously a goal in mind, whatever that is, for whatever level people are at. And then I guess it's about looking at, well, what happens between this point and that point. So, you know, if it's a sporting event, it's like, okay, well, I have to train for this event to reach this goal that I've set. And in a business, it's like, well, we need to grow the business to this point. And I mean, training essentially is conditioning your body to adapt to what you want it to be able to do in your sporting event. So I guess if you apply that to business, then your day-to-day kind of business routine is essentially the same thing. It's kind of training your business to build towards this kind of end game or goal you've got, you know, with your company or business or project, whatever it is. And then so it's really, I think, quite simple. I think it is actually that simple. It is really just setting the goal and then starting on that journey to achieving that goal. And in sport, if you just kind of focus on that, that is about basically getting fitter and stronger and building stamina and things just by doing the thing that you're going to be doing in the competition. And that is just basically, you know, putting down the foundation. It's just brick by brick by brick by brick and building it up until you've got all the sort of the complete pieces, I guess. And I suppose that model is no different to business. It's just about, you know, as an athlete, when I'm really sort of in the zone, I guess you could say, about training for a big race, I mean, I do ask myself a simple question at the end of most days, probably every day, but the end of most days, and that question is what have I done today to take me closer to my goal? Now, as an athlete, that's real easy, because if I lie in bed at night and the last thing I think about before I go to sleep is what have I done today to take me close to my goal? So, well, I've been for a 4-hour run, or I have been for a 2-hour run, I had a massage, or, you know, I read a really interesting article on nutrition and I've been for a 5-hour kayak, whatever it is. So it's usually quite measurable. What I've found in my business is that it's a little bit harder, but it's equally as important. So, you know, growing the businesses I have, it's sort of asking the same question at the end of each day or the end of each week. You know, what have I actually done to kind of take me closer to my goal? And there are days or periods where you struggle to kind of think about something, and that's okay as long as you identify that and then rectify it somehow. So, yeah, I guess how would you sum that up? It's probably just constant evaluation. You know, having measurable targets, taking things step by step, being patient, not getting daunted by the big picture, you know, and sort of focus what's in front of you in the moment.
Yeah. So trial, error, fail, learn, repeat sort of stuff.
Yeah, I think so, pretty much. I mean, you want to try and minimise the amount of mistakes you make, but know that mistakes are great opportunities to learn. So, you know, they happen, and it's kind of like you accept them, adapt, move on. You don't dwell on it, don't waste time. Just keep moving forward. Like, I think having that momentum is really, really important. So, you know, once you get that momentum going, just do everything you can to keep it going that way.
Nathan Faavae, 6-time world champion. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, and massive appreciation from myself, and I'm sure from the viewers. You've got so much to offer, and obviously you've got so much more coming in the future. So I just want to say a big thanks on behalf of Outlier. Thanks for coming on the show.
Cool. Well, thank you. Thanks for seeing some value in coming and chatting to me. And it's always great speaking to people like yourself, because you end up thinking about a lot of things that perhaps weren't front of mind. And And I just hope that some of the stuff we've discussed today is of benefit to people who are listening, and I wish them luck and a lot of fun on their journey.
Awesome. Thanks, mate. Really appreciate it. You're a legend.
Cool, thank you.